Do you know what the fast Incoterm is about?
International commercial terms help to define where the risks and costs are transferred from the seller to the buyer.
There are two main groups of Incoterms: the any mode of transport, that are ex-works, free carrier, carriage paid to, delivered at terminal, delivered at place, and delivered duty paid. And the other group is the sea and inland waterway transport, that are free alongside ship, free on board, cost and freight, and cost insurance and freight.
And today we are going to talk about FAST, the free alongside ship Incoterm.
Free alongside ship means that the seller delivers when the goods are placed alongside the vessel nominated by the buyer at the named port of shipment.
There are two parties in the fast Incoterm, the seller and the buyer, and they have to achieve some obligations. The seller's obligations are: the first one, provision of goods in conformity with the contract. The seller must provide the goods and the commercial invoice in conformity with the contract of sale and any other evidence of conformity which may be required by the contract. Second one, licenses, authorizations, and formalities. The seller must obtain at his own risk and expense any export license or other official authorizations and carry out, where applicable, all customs formalities necessary for the export of the goods. Third one, contracts of carriage and insurance. Carriage and insurance means that although the seller pays for the freight and insurance, the risk or damage or loss to the goods being transported is transferred from the seller to the buyer as soon as the goods have been delivered to the carrier. The fourth one, delivery. The seller must place the goods alongside the vessel nominated by the buyer at the loading place named by the buyer at the named port of shipment on the date or within the agreed period and in the manner customary at the port. The fifth one, transfer of risk. The seller must subject to the provision all risk of loss of or damage to the goods until such time as they have been delivered with the accordance. The sixth one, division of costs. The seller must subject to the provision of all costs relating to the goods until such time as they have been delivered in accordance, where applicable, the cost of customs formality as well as duties, taxes, and other charges payable upon export. The seventh one, notice to the buyer. The seller must give to the buyer enough notice that the goods have been delivered alongside the nominated vessel. The eighth one, proof of delivery and transport documents. The seller must provide the buyer at the seller's expense with the usual proof of delivery of the goods in accordance. When the seller and the buyer have agreed to communicate electronically, the document referred to in the preceding paragraphs may be replaced by an equivalent electronic data interchange message. The ninth one, checking, packaging, and marking. The seller must pay the cost of those checking operations, such as checking quality, measuring, weighing, counting, which are necessary for the purpose of delivering the goods in accordance. And finally, they have other obligations. The seller must provide the buyer, upon request, with the necessary information for procuring insurance.
I'm going to talk about the obligation of the buyer. First one is payment of the price.
The buyer must pay the price as provided in contract of sale.
The second one is licenses, authorization, and formalities.
The buyer must obtain at his own risk and expense any import license or other official authorization and carry out.
The third one is contracts of carriage and insurance.
Contract of carriage. The buyer must contract at his own expense for the carriage of the goods from the named port of shipment. Contract of insurance. No obligation.
The fourth one is taking delivery.
The buyer must take delivery of the goods when they have been delivered in accordance with A4.
The fifth one is transfer of the risks.
The buyer must bear all risk of loss or damage to the goods from the time they have been delivered and from the time the agreed date or the expiry date of the agreed period for delivery, which arise because he fails to give notice or because the vessel nomination by him fails to arrive on time.
The sixth one is division of costs.
The buyer must pay all costs relating to the goods from the time they have been delivered and any additional costs incurred, either because the vessel nominated by him has failed to arrive on time or is unable to take the goods or closes for cargo earlier than the time notified.
Number 7 is notice to the seller.
The buyer must give the seller sufficient notice of the vessel name, loading point, and required delivery time.
Proof of delivery, transfer document, or equivalent electronic message.
The buyer must accept the proof of delivery.
Number 9 is inspection of the goods.
The buyer must pay the cost of any pre-shipment inspection, except when such inspection is mandated by the authorities of the countries of export.
Last one is other obligations.
The buyer must pay all costs and charges incurred in obtaining the documents or equivalent electronic messages and reimburse those incurred by the seller in rendering his assistance in accordance therewith.
As you can see, this was the first Incoterm and the respective obligations from the seller and the buyer. Thank you so much.